I almost deleted your name from my phone tonight, not because I stopped loving you, but because my mother looked me in the eyes after hearing your name and said something that has been destroying me ever since. She will either become your peace or the reason you never feel peace again. And I don't think you understand what happened to me after that, because suddenly, for the first time in my life, loving you stopped feeling romantic. It started feeling irreversible. I've delayed this confession for weeks, maybe months, because once I say these things out loud, there's no safe way back to who I was before you. And if you leave this conversation too early, you'll never understand why your name created tension inside a house that survived every storm before this one. You'll never understand why a man who built his entire life around control started losing sleep over one woman he couldn't predict. You became the emotional risk nobody prepared me for. And the terrifying part is, maybe think my mother noticed before I did. You know what hurts? It wasn't even a fight. That would have been easier. No, it was quieter than that. I mentioned your name casually during dinner, just casually, like it meant nothing. And the room changed. My mother stopped eating. My father looked at me for 2 seconds too long. Nobody said anything immediately. The atmosphere became heavy in a way I can't fully explain. You ever walk into a room and feel people silently realizing your life is about to change forever? That's what it felt like. And suddenly, I couldn't breathe normally anymore, because they saw something in my voice. Something I was trying desperately to hide. Attachment, real attachment, not attraction, not temporary excitement, not loneliness, pretending to be love. Something deeper, something dangerous. My mother finally asked, "Who is she?" And I swear to you, the way she asked terrified me, not because she sounded angry, because she sounded afraid. That's when I realized this wasn't just about romance ends anymore. This was about the possibility that one woman could completely alter the emotional structure of my future. Do you know how rare that is for someone like me? People think ambitious men are emotionally fearless. We're not. We just become experts at hiding vulnerability behind productivity, behind work, behind schedules, behind achievements, behind exhaustion. But real love destroys structure. It interrupts logic. It makes powerful people emotionally unstable in private. And lately, that's exactly what you've been doing to me. I started noticing little things. Your absence affecting my concentration. Your silence changing my mood. One cold reply from you ruining an entire evening. And I hated myself for that at first. Because dependence is terrifying when your whole identity was built around self-control. But then something even worse happened. AB started imagining a future with you, automatically, not fantasy, not obsession, something quieter, more mature. I'd picture you in ordinary moments, standing in the kitchen half awake, complaining about something small, looking tired after a long day, falling asleep while pretending you weren't exhausted. And somehow, those tiny imaginary moments affected me more than any glamorous fantasy ever could. That's when I knew I was in trouble, because men don't accidentally imagine permanence, especially men who spent years avoiding emotional permanence completely. And maybe that's why my mother reacted the way she did. Mothers know. They always know. She saw it in my eyes before I admitted it to myself. She saw that I was emotionally moving toward one woman in a way that changes a man permanently. After dinner, she stopped me before I went upstairs. And what she said next, AB haven't recovered from. She asked me quietly, "Are you sure she loves you and not the future that comes with you?" God, AB, wish you understood how deeply that question entered my mind. Because once someone plants doubt inside love, everything becomes psychologically exhausting. I started replaying every conversation we ever had, every compliment, every emotional moment, every silence, every delay, every promise. I started asking myself terrifying questions at 2 a.m. Would you still choose me if I lost everything? Would you still stay if life stopped looking impressive? Would you still love me if I became emotionally difficult 1 year from now? Or do people only love powerful men while the future looks exciting? And the worst part, I hated myself for even questioning you, because a part of me already trusted you deeply, maybe too deeply. But fear changes people, especially when family becomes involved, especially when your mother suddenly starts looking at you like she's watching her son walk towards something that could either heal him or emotionally destroy him forever. And maybe she's right to worry, because I haven't been myself lately. I look calmer around people. Internally, I'm becoming dangerously attached to someone who still has no idea how much power she has over me. Do you know what scares me most? It's not rejection, it's not heartbreak. It's the possibility that I finally found the right woman at the exact moment my entire world started trying to protect me from loving her. And I still haven't told you the real reasons my mother got upset after hearing your name. Because the truth is much deeper than jealousy, much darker than protection. And once I say it out loud, you may never look at this love the same way again. If you're still here with me, subscribe quietly. Tell me where in the world you're listening from tonight. Sometimes knowing you're out there somehow makes this confession easier to survive. And the strange thing is, after that dinner, my mother started pretending your name didn't exist. No more questions, no more curiosity, nothing, just silence. The kind of silence people create when they already know something painful is coming. And I don't know why. That silence has been haunting me ever since. Because deep down, Abby thinks she knows something about love that I'm only beginning to understand now, and I'm terrified she may be right. After that night, everything inside my house became emotionally strange. Nobody mentioned your name again, not once. And honestly, that scared me more than arguments ever could, because when families stop talking about something completely, it usually means they already feel the danger of it. I remember sitting alone in my office around 2 a.m., staring at your last message for almost an hour without replying, not because I didn't want to talk to you, because I was afraid of how badly I needed to. That's the part nobody warns powerful men about. The moment emotional attachment quietly becomes dependence. You start measuring your peace by someone else's emotional temperature. One soft message from you could calm my entire nervous system. One distant reply could make me overthink for days. And I know how unhealthy that sounds, but love is psychologically humiliating sometimes. Especially for people who spent years mastering emotional control. You know what's strange? The world thinks men like me are difficult to hurt. We look composed, strategic, untouchable. But the truth is, stronger a man appears publicly, more terrifying emotional intimacy becomes privately. Because once we finally let someone close, we stop knowing how to protect ourselves halfway. And that's exactly what happened to me with you. I didn't slowly care. I crossed some invisible emotional line without realizing it. One day, you were simply someone interesting. And then suddenly your happiness started affecting mine. That shift is dangerous. Do you know how terrifying it is to realize another human being can influence your emotional stability without even trying? I started hearing your voice in my head during ordinary moments, during meetings, flights, late-night drives. I'd randomly wonder if you were tired, if you ate properly, if something was secretly hurting you that you weren't telling anyone. And I hated how deeply domestic my thoughts became. Because men don't imagine peaceful routines with women, they only desire. They imagine that with women, they're unconsciously preparing to keep forever. That realization changed me. But the real problem started 3 days later. My mother walked into my office early in the morning, holding tea, and asked me something I still can't forget. Have you told her about your past yet? I froze, completely froze. Because suddenly I understood what this was actually about. It wasn't about status. It wasn't about family approval. It wasn't even about fear of losing me. It was about the version of me you still didn't fully know. And for the first time since meeting you, Abby felt guilt, real guilt, the kind that sits quietly in your chest and makes you question whether you deserve someone emotionally pure. You see, people think successful men are hiding secrets about money. No, the real secrets are emotional. The real secrets are the people we failed before becoming wiser, the hearts we damaged while trying to understand ourselves, the women we couldn't love properly because we were still emotionally incomplete. And when my mother asked that question, Abby realized something horrifying. You were falling in love with the healed version of me, without fully knowing the man I used to be. I haven't told you the real reason yet. And maybe part of me delayed it intentionally because I was afraid you'd leave emotionally before I finished explaining. But you deserve honesty, even if honesty ruins everything. Years ago, before you AP loved someone in the worst possible way, immaturely, selfishly, I thought ambition could replace emotional presence. I thought providing was the same as understanding. I thought saying, "I'm busy," enough times would somehow excuse emotional neglect. And by the time I realized she was lonely beside me, this was already too late. She left quietly. No screaming, no revenge, no dramatic ending. Just emotional exhaustion. Do you know how painful it is when someone leaves you calmly? It means they already grieved the relationship before ending it. And my mother witnessed all of it. She watched me become emotionally unavailable while convincing myself I was building the future. She watched another woman slowly disappear emotionally beside me. And when she heard your name at dinner, AB thinks she became afraid. History would repeat itself again. Not because you would hurt me, because she feared I might hurt you. That realization destroyed me. Because suddenly, this wasn't about whether you were right for me. It became about whether I was safe for you, emotionally. Have you ever looked at someone you deeply love and wondered if loving them might eventually damage them? That question has been haunting me every night lately, especially because you trust me in ways I don't think you fully understand yet. You speak to me softly, openly, like your heart still believes love can be safe. And I'm terrified of being the reason that innocence disappears one day. That's why I became distant sometimes. Not because I stopped feeling, because I felt too much. Because once I realized how serious this was becoming, AP started questioning whether I deserved to continue pulling you deeper into my world. And then something happened last week that made everything worse. I met someone else. No, listen to me carefully. Nothing happened. But for one terrifying moment, AB understood how easily people destroy real love without intending to. She was beautiful, intelligent, easy to talk to. The kind of woman my family would probably approve instantly. No complications, no emotional risk, no tension. And for a few minutes, AB considered the possibility that maybe loving someone safe would make life easier. God, even admitting that makes me hate myself because while she was sitting across from me smiling, all I could think about was you, your voice, your silence, your emotional depth. The way you make conversations feel honest instead of performative. And that's when I realized something terrifying. You had already ruined ordinary connection for me. Nobody else felt emotionally real anymore. But that realization came with another fear too. Because if you ever leave AB, don't think I'll know how to emotionally return to shallow love again. Do you understand the pressure of that? To love someone in a way that permanently changes your emotional standards forever? That night, I drove home completely numb. And when I entered the house, my mother looked at me once and quietly asked, "Did you finally understand?" I said, "Understand what?" And she answered something I still hear in my head every single night. "She isn't dangerous because you love her." My mother paused. Then she looked directly into my eyes and whispered, "She's dangerous because losing her would change who you become after." And for the first time in years, AB think I understood what real love actually costs. After my mother said that AB stopped sleeping properly, not metaphorically, I mean genuinely sleeping. Because once you realize losing one person could permanently alter your personality, your nervous system stops treating love like emotion. It starts treating it like survival. And that's exactly what began happening to me. I became quieter around everyone. More distracted, meetings would continue around me, while my mind replayed tiny moments involving you. The way your voice softens when you're emotionally tired. The way you pause before admitting something vulnerable. The way you pretend you're okay, even when something inside you clearly isn't. And the terrifying thing was, AB noticed all of it automatically. That's when I knew this had gone too far, because attention is the purest form of attachment. You don't accidentally study someone emotionally unless your heart has already started building a future around them. But around this time, something changed between us. You probably felt it too. Your messages became slightly shorter. Your energy shifted, not dramatically. That's what made it worse. It was subtle. And subtle distance is psychologically brutal because you can never fully prove it's happening, so you start questioning yourself instead. Maybe I'm imagining it. Maybe she's tired. Maybe life is overwhelming her. Maybe I'm becoming emotionally paranoid. But deep down, AB knew something was changing. And instead of asking you directly like a healthy man, AB did what emotionally damaged men do best. I overanalyzed silently every pause, every delayed reply, every change in tone. Do you know how humiliating it is for a man to stare at a simple message and wonder if the woman he loves is slowly emotionally detaching? Especially a man who built his entire identity around appearing emotionally composed. I hated who I was becoming, needy internally, calm externally. That combination destroys people quietly. Then one night, everything almost collapsed. I called you. You didn't answer. Not unusual. But something in my chest reacted instantly. I waited. 10 minutes, 20, an hour, still nothing. And suddenly my mind started creating scenarios faster than logic could stop them. Maybe you met someone else. Maybe you realized I'm too complicated emotionally. Maybe my distance finally exhausted you. Maybe you're slowly preparing to leave without hurting me directly. And that's the dangerous thing about deep attachment. Once fear enters love, silence becomes torture. I drove for almost 2 hours that night with no destination. Just driving, trying to escape my own thoughts. And somewhere during that drive, Abi had the most disturbing realization of my entire life. I was no longer afraid of heartbreak. I was afraid of becoming emotionally empty again after you. Because before you, AP understood loneliness. I had mastered it. I knew how to survive emotionally disconnected from everyone. But after experiencing you, after feeling this level of emotional intimacy, I don't think I could go back to surviving without warmth again. That realization broke something inside me. People think love hurts most during separation. No, love hurts most the moment you realize someone has become emotionally irreplaceable, and you had become exactly that. When you finally called back, your voice sounded exhausted. You apologized softly, said you fell asleep accidentally. Simple explanation, normal explanation. But I couldn't even respond properly because the emotional panic I experienced before your call had already exposed something terrifying to me. I loved you more than I still knew how to manage. And honestly, that scared me. Because emotionally intense love changes people in dangerous ways. It makes rational people impulsive. It makes independent people dependent. It makes strong people fragile and private. That night, after our call ended, Apa sat in complete darkness thinking about one question for hours. What if I'm not emotionally healthy enough to love her correctly, not passionately? Correctly. There's a difference. Passion is easy. Possession is easy. Intensity is easy. But emotionally safe love? That requires healing, patience, self-awareness. And suddenly I became terrified that maybe I was still carrying damage from my past relationships into something that deserved purity. I remembered every moment I withdrew emotionally from you after feeling vulnerable. Every moment I acted colder after intimacy. Every moment I disappeared into work because closeness scared me, and I started realizing something painful. Maybe you weren't becoming distant first. Maybe you were reacting to my inconsistency. That realization hit me harder than heartbreak itself, because nothing destroys a man internally faster than realizing he may be slowly hurting the woman he's trying hardest to protect. And then, 3 nights later, worst moment happened. You said something casually during our conversation. You probably don't even remember it fully, but I do. You laughed softly and said, "Sometimes I wonder if your life would just be easier without me." God, AB went completely silent after that, because you accidentally spoke the exact fear that had been destroying me privately for weeks. And do you know what terrified me most? A small part of me almost answered yes. Not because life without you would feel better, because life with you had become emotionally overwhelming, in ways I wasn't prepared for. That thought shattered me. I ended the call early that night, pretending I was tired. Truthfully, I was having an emotional breakdown quietly in my own kitchen at almost 3 a.m. I leaned against the counter trying to breathe normally, while realizing something horrifying about myself. I loved you deeply. I was still afraid of what that love demanded from me: commitment. consistency, emotional transparency, permanent vulnerability. Real love doesn't just ask for affection, it asks for transformation. And transformation terrifies people who spent years emotionally guarded. That night, my mother found me sitting there alone. She didn't ask questions immediately. She just sat beside me quietly, and after a long silence, she finally said, "You're thinking about leaving her before she can leave you, aren't you?" I couldn't answer, because she was right. A part of me genuinely believed pushing you away first might protect both of us from a worse future later. That's how damaged people think. We confuse avoidance with protection, distant with maturity, emotional withdrawal with wisdom. But my mother looked at me with tears in her eyes and said something I will never forget for the rest of my life. If you walk away from a woman you truly love because you're afraid, you will spend years pretending it was logic when it was really cowardice. That sentence destroyed every defense I had left. Because suddenly I saw the future clearly, a future where I lose you intentionally, then spend the next decade searching for pieces of you and everyone else. And the terrifying part? I think I was seconds away from making exactly that mistake, but there's still something I haven't told you. Something much darker. The real reason my mother reacted so emotionally after hearing your name. The truth she hid from me for years, until last night. And when she finally told me, Abby understood why this love was frightening her from the very beginning, because this was never only about me. It was about someone else she once lost forever. Last night, my mother finally told me the truth, the real truth. Not the polite version, not the protective version families create to avoid emotional pain. The truth she buried for years, because she thought silence would hurt less than memory. And honestly, after hearing it, Abby understood why she became afraid the moment your name entered our house. We were sitting together in the living room long after midnight. No television, no phones, no distractions, just silence heavy enough to feel physical. I remember the clock ticking so loudly, it almost irritated me. Because deep down, Abby knew something irreversible was coming. My mother looked older that night, not physically. Emotionally, like memories itself was exhausting her. And then she asked me something quietly. "Do you know why I react so strongly when I see you truly love someone?" I said no. And for a few seconds, she just stared at her hands, like she was trying to decide whether reopening an old wound was worth it. Then she finally whispered, "Because before you were born, there was someone your father loved before me." I froze, completely froze, because my parents never spoke about things like that. Either. To me, their story always looked stable, permanent, untouchable. But suddenly, everything I thought I understood about love started changing. My mother smiled sadly and said, "She was the love of his life." God, hearing those words about another woman, nearly broke her even now. Decades later, that's how long real love survives inside people, even after life moves forward, even after marriage, children, responsibility, time. Some loves never fully leave the body, my mother continued quietly. She died before they could build a future together, and suddenly the room didn't feel normal anymore. It felt haunted, like I was sitting inside somebody else's unfinished grief. She told me my father was never the same after losing her. He became emotionally distant, obsessively hard-working, cold without intending to be. He survived. But he stopped allowing himself to love freely after that, until eventually he met my mother. And even though he cared for her deeply, a part of him remained emotionally guarded forever. Do you understand how heartbreaking that is? To love someone while knowing a piece of their heart still lives inside another timeline that never happened. My mother looked at me carefully and whispered, "When I heard your voice saying her name at dinner, AB recognized the same emotional attachment immediately. Then she said the sentence that completely changed me. I'm not afraid because you love her." Her voice cracked. "I'm afraid because men in this family never survive losing the woman they truly love." I couldn't breathe properly after that, because suddenly every fear I had been carrying finally connected together. My emotional panic, my attachment to you, my fear of abandonment, my instinct to withdraw before getting hurt, it all made sense. I inherited emotional survival patterns from people who never healed correctly. And for the first time in my life, AP stopped seeing love as romance. I started seeing it as emotional inheritance. Do you know what scared me most after hearing her story? It wasn't the possibility of heartbreak anymore. It was realizing how easily fear can make people sabotage the very love capable of healing them. My father lost someone once and spent years emotionally hiding afterward, and I was already starting to become the same kind of man. Quietly distant, emotionally defensive, prepared for loss before it even arrived. That realization terrified me more than losing you itself, because suddenly I saw the future clearly. I saw myself pretending work mattered more than love, pretending emotional distance was maturity, pretending independence felt empowering, meanwhile secretly missing you in every quiet room for the rest of my life. And I knew instantly AP couldn't allow that future to happen, not this time, not with you. That night I walked outside alone afterward, cold air at CB streets, almost 4 a.m. And for the first time in months, AP stopped fighting my feelings. No overthinking, no emotional calculations, no self-protection. Just truth, I love you, not temporarily, not conveniently, not conditionally. I love you in the terrifying way that changes a person permanently, the kind of love that forces a man to confront every broken part of himself honestly. And maybe that's why this journey became so painful. Because loving you exposed everything inside me that still needed healing. My fear, my emotional inconsistency, my avoidance, my panic around vulnerability. You didn't create those wounds, you revealed them. And there's a difference. For weeks I kept wondering whether loving you would destroy my peace, but last night AB finally understood something deeper. You were never the threat. Fear was fear of loss, fear of repetition, fear of becoming emotionally dependent, fear of giving someone enough access to permanently affect me, and fear almost convinced me to walk away from the woman I already knew was home. Do you know how tragic that would have been? To lose real love not because it failed, because fear spoke louder than honesty. I almost became that man. The man who lets go of something extraordinary, then spends the rest of his life pretending it was the right decision. But I can't do that anymore, because once you experience genuine emotional connection, everything fake becomes unbearable, and you ruined fake love for me forever. I can no longer tolerate shallow conversations, emotion without depth, attention without sincerity, presence without emotional safety. You changed my standards permanently, and maybe that's why my mother cried when we spoke last night. Not because she disapproved of you. Because she finally realized something she never expected to witness again. A man in this family willing to love courageously, despite understanding the risk completely. Before I went upstairs, she stopped me one final time. And with tears in her eyes, she smiled softly and said, "Then don't punish her for what life did to the men before you." God, that sentence healed something inside me, because she was right. You should never carry consequences created by wounds you didn't cause. And neither should love. So, if you're listening to me right now, really listening, AB need you to hear this carefully. If I ever became distant, it was never because you were hard to love. It was because loving you felt important enough to scare me, and important things terrify people who know loss intimately. But I don't want fear writing our future anymore. I want honesty, even when it shakes, even when it risks rejection, even when it exposes weakness, because real love is not built by emotionally perfect people. It's built by people brave enough to stop hiding. And maybe that's the final truth I was trying so hard to avoid through all of this. You didn't enter my life to destroy me. You entered my life to end the version of me that was surviving instead of truly loving. And for the first time, AB think I'm finally ready to stop surviving.